you fell asleep at halftime of the TCU Georgia national championship game, a game that Georgia won 65-7. I don't need to remind TCU fans or Georgia fans of that. But if you fell asleep at halftime of that game and you've kind of tuned out for 8 months now, welcome back. First of all, we are very, very glad to have you. You can go back and listen to our conference preview episodes that we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. They are really in-depth research. Like I said, you can read the magazine to get ready, but you missed quite a bit this offseason. It was an offseason that started pretty slow. It was a relatively slow coaching carousel that I'll break down here in just a second. But boy, by July, was it heated up. It was media rights deals. It was conference realignment. It was teams that we never thought would leave certain conferences packing up their bags and finding any way out. A complete power shift in college football with outside of the top two conferences in the Big Ten and the SEC, the reshuffling that the Big 12 has rocketed its status up to possibly the third best conference with the additions. All of that's off the field in addition to what we saw the headlines on the field. So let's start with the impact coaching hires, because if you were sleeping on this coaching carousel, I don't really blame you. It was a softer one for the most part, especially when you compare it to the 2022 season, because we didn't have a Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma for USC. We didn't have a Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame for LSU. We don't see big coaching movements like that very often. And we didn't see that again this year, but we did see some really big moves. And I'll start at the most famous one. I'll start at what everybody seems to be talking about ahead of week one. That's Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, moving up from the FCS level at Jackson State, a program that he revitalized, that he put back on the map. He made relevant again. He fought Florida State and other national powers for legit five-star recruits to get to Little Jackson, Mississippi. He's leaving that behind to go become the head coach at Colorado Buffaloes in Boulder, a program that has enjoyed a lot of success nationally in history, but has really been irrelevant since they joined the Pac-12 about a decade ago. And he's looking to revitalize that program. He's come in and completely wiped out that roster. They've had over 50 transfers since he was announced and completely brought in a new roster. It has been a complete overhaul. He basically came in and said, look, most of you are not going to make the cut. Most of you, it's a 1-11 roster. We're going to have some tough love. We're going to have some tough conversations. And most of you are not going to make the cut. Plain and simple. And a lot of people in the media didn't like that. A lot of people thought that that was a little bit too harsh for when he came in, but it's working for him. It seems to be working for him. The program has been revitalized from a fan interest standpoint. They had attendance records at the spring game, and the vibes are very high in Boulder, despite not really knowing a lot about what they're going to put on the field in 2023. Now, we've seen some talk about them as a dark horse Pac-12 title contender, that they could win 7, 8, 9 games. I think that's way too early to say. Could that all happen? Could the talent all come together? And could we have maybe a miracle run like we saw from TCU last year? Of course, it's college football. That can always happen. But is it likely? I don't think so. I think the way more likely scenarios, you see really steady improvement. This was a 1-11 team last year. So winning 2 games would double your win total. I think you see some steady improvement under Prime. I think the standards are going to be raised. I think the caliber of athlete that he's bringing in 5-star recruits for the first time in modern Colorado history. That's going to pay dividends on the field, but I think that he's running into a Pac-12 that, ironically, as it fades into oblivion with all the teams leaving, is strong as it has been in recent memory with teams at the top. So it's going to be a very difficult road for him in year one. To me, a successful season would be winning 4 or 5 games. If he can get to a bowl game, that is a masterclass in coaching. A successful season is winning 4 or 5 games. And I know that that's not the standard that he wants long-term, but that's quadrupling or multiplying times 5 the number of games that program won just a year ago. And it's a program that's been down in the dumps, has had a few highlight blip years here and there. I know they paid for a Pac-12 title a couple years ago, but overall, it's been tough sledding since the 90s. And Deion Sanders is bringing swagger back to that program and making it relevant once again. Another guy that's trying to bring relevance back to a historically proud program is Matt Rule at Nebraska. And if you know anything about Matt Rule, his MO is to take a program, year one, come in, tear it down to the studs, and rebuild it from the ashes and make it like a phoenix rising from the ashes and be really relevant and powerful starting in year 2, basically. So when Matt Rule shows up at Nebraska, the expectation, I think, from the Nebraska fan base, they want to win. They obviously, gave Scott Frost a lot of time, probably more time than they should have, as a guy that's an alum and just a favorite son of that program. But when you hire Matt Rule, you've got to be expecting a rough year one. I don't know that it's going to be like it was at Temple or Baylor, where they won one game or two games. I think they have more talent than either of those Temple and Baylor teams in this year. And I think that he's dipped into the portal a little bit to make sure that it's not a just catastrophically bad season. But this is another situation where I think making a bowl game would be just a miracle job by Matt Rule. I'm not expecting that for Nebraska this year. I think long-term, this is one of my favorite hires of this offseason. I think Nebraska's in great hands with Matt Rule, but man, it's just really hard to go against his MO. He even did it in the NFL with the Carolina Panthers. They were really bad in year one. That's just how he does things. And they knew that when they made that hire. The fan base knew that when they made that hire. And they are, I think, ready for the rebuild. I think they're ready to invest long-term and not worry about short-term success at the expense of long-term game. I think that that's a fan base that is starving. That's a fan base that is ready to win. And they're going to figure it out eventually. I really do think Nebraska, especially as they move into a new era in the Big Ten, they're going to have some new competition. I think long-term, the stock is going up on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, but we'll see how that goes in year one. I'm not expecting big things from them in Matt Rule's first year. A couple of programs that I am higher on in their first year with new head coaches. Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. He comes over from Cincinnati. He's the only coach to ever take a group of 5 program to the college football playoff. That's quite the feather in his cap. He's bringing over a lot of his coaching staff, but he dipped into, I think this was brilliant, he dipped into not an assistant pool of his to hire Phil Longo away from North Carolina. Phil Longo leaves Mac Brown in North Carolina to become the offensive coordinator at Wisconsin. And I know what you're thinking. Wisconsin, known for ground and pound, known for, having the best offensive line, the best running backs, the best bully ball game in the entire country. They've been known for that for their entire existence, practically. Not so much anymore. This is not your granddad's Wisconsin. We've been talking about this a lot on the podcast this summer, but if you haven't noticed, Wisconsin is not your granddad's Wisconsin, not your dad or even your older brother's Wisconsin, where they're handing it to Melvin Gordon or Monte Ball or all those other great running backs that they've had through that program over the last decade plus. They're going to run a version of the air raid. They're going to run Phil Longo's offense that put up 1 billion points with Drake May. Oh, and they might have just gotten the best transfer quarterback in the game in Tanner Mordecai from SMU to do it. So going from a couple coaches that I'm tempering expectations, I have huge expectations for Luke Fickell in year one at Wisconsin. The schedule's very kind to him. There's a wide open window for him to make a lot of noise in Madison and get those fans excited again in a way that they haven't been in the last few years. Hugh Freeze at Auburn. He's a guy he's a wild card. And Hugh Freeze, when you hire Hugh Freeze, you are hiring a wild card head coach. You don't know what you're going to get. I know that he has SEC experience. I know that he has all the drama that comes with hiring Hugh Freeze as the head coach away from Liberty and original Ole Miss. But you just don't know what you're going to get. I think they're going to be prolific on offense. I think getting Peyton Thorne from Michigan State was a great pickup in the transfer portal. This is a team I could see going 3-9 or 9-3 and really not a lot of in between. I think Auburn's either going to be, down in the dumps and rebuilding this year, or they're going to surprise everybody and make a run towards a New Year's Six Bowl. I really don't think there's going to be much in between for Auburn. And it's going to be really exciting to watch unfold and see how Hugh Freeze develops that program and gets his second chance at life in the SEC. And just one more coaching hire for you, G5 level. Keep an eye on Jamie Chadwell at Liberty. Liberty's moving into a conference for the first time in Conference USA. I think that they're going to dominate that league along with Western Kentucky in the years to come, as long as it survives. And Jamie Chadwell is one of the great offensive minds of this generation of coaches. His offense at Coastal Carolina was electric with Grayson McCall running the show. He has a lot more resources at Liberty than he did at Coastal Carolina to hire a better coaching staff, to hire better, assistants, more resources into the program, better recruiting budget. They could be the next G5 power, especially with that vacuum kind of emptying out. I really do think Liberty has a chance to make a lot of noise over the next few years, especially in a college football playoff format that is going to reward the group of 5 teams that win their conference. They're going to get a free ticket at least for the next 2 years. So There's 5 head coaches to watch and impact head coaching hires. As I take a quick sip, I want to tell you about our friends over at Home Field Apparel, because we are getting ready for the season. They are getting ready for the season. It is something, if you're going out to a football game this fall, you need to have the best gear. You need to have that t-shirt or that hoodie or that hat or that jacket or whatever it is that everyone is talking about. And you know that you like not those generic corporate logos, not those boring block tee, very focus group oriented logos. You like the old school stuff, and we like the old school stuff. So we love what Home Field Apparel has to offer. They have so many schools to choose from. Even if it's not your favorite school, just peruse the different categories, the different schools. They are so fun to look at. They are so fun to just, wear, and they're very comfortable shirts. I'm wearing a Kansas State shirt right now. I didn't go to Kansas State, but the shirt's awesome. It's comfortable. It's fits well, and it looks awesome. And it has a retro logo that looks fantastic. It's a great conversation starter. I have the A&M collection, the Loyola Chicago collection, the Kansas State collection. You name it, their shirts are fantastic. Garrett and Mitch have a lot too. Iowa, Tulane, more Texas A&M, of course, as we're Aggies. But make sure that you're geared up for the season with Home Field Apparel. Use code 3TechPod at checkout on your first order, and you will get 15% off your entire order, no matter how big or small it is, 15% off. And you can pick up the most comfortable shirts and jackets to rep your team in style today.
Gracious, how about